Hi, everyone, and welcome to the WorkAway Office podcast. Today, I have the unique pleasure of interviewing Ken Stewart. Ken Stewart is the president of GAPC and the executive vice president and producer of GAPC Entertainment. Ken has been involved in the Ottawa business market for over 40 years, and he started a variety of businesses in the audio, visual, and digital sector markets. He has done this with a variety of partners, and he's also been on a number of industry advisory committees. Ken has also had a broad experience with a number of not-for-profit boards and organizations. Ken, it's so nice to have you here, and welcome to the WorkAway podcast.
Great.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks, Vince.
So, Ken, I've known you for a little while. Our viewers don't know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the business.
Well, the business, film and television and video production, started off way back when in Ottawa, came from Montreal, went to Carleton University for a bit. 1 plus 1 didn't necessarily always equal to 2, so I tried to go into the trades, and I went into radio and television at Algonquin College after Carleton, and then headed out west to Vancouver. Worked for a number of years out there, a lot of video art and different things for community channels, and music videos were just starting up back then, so got into that for some first-time bands that are still around today.
Interesting.
Then I got a call back to come to Ottawa and work with my former business partner, and we started a new company back in '83. We called it GA, or General Assembly. And it was just an editing company, so it was only video editing. The idea was to service producers who were creating content, who needed editing, and who needed editing from an independent company, because there was no independent companies at that time in Eastern Ontario, in fact, doing just editing services. So we set the company up. We went out and got about 20 investors, raised at that time $137,000 or so, and started the company, and we're hit a number of firsts, both in Eastern Ontario and in Canada. We were the first AB roll with special effects, 3/4-inch videotape editing at the time. And then we were the first company that had an air pack special effects unit. So I used to do, way back then, football games and hockey games, even the Russia-Canada series at one point, doing the special effects inside the mobile truck for sports and that kind of thing. So I traveled across the country renting this huge piece of gear with lots of boards. It was about, that machine cost $110,000 at the time.
Wow.
But basically, yeah, we started editing, and then the company grew as things changed and technology changed. We had to pivot, and at one point we pivoted into production, producing content, corporate and government work, and then we also pivoted in terms of starting new companies. We started one of the first multimedia web design companies in Ottawa, or Eastern Ontario, Dig Design. And I started another company called Blue Turtle Sound way back when, and usually with partners and different directors. And then we sort of moved forward and consolidated and expanded. And then technology changed a lot, so producers could get their own equipment at a very, cost-effective price. And we then decided we had to go into the production business and become producers ourselves and create content, and then we started television and entertainment production.
Wow. It's incredible, because it sounds like so many other businesses, you have to pivot. You've looked at the opportunities in front of you, and you've said, okay, let's check out this opportunity, let's look at that. And so that's amazing. I didn't know that.
Well, sometimes,
that's pretty cool.
Pivoting is sometimes by choice and by looking at what the future is, but a lot of time it's no choice.
And it requires I think a lot of, maybe the word I'm looking for is guts, bravery. I mean, you have to have, obviously, that faith in yourself to do that. And so, yeah, that's incredible. And so you talked about the corporate communications. Is there a project or two that comes to mind that you really remember, and something that you like to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a quite a few of a variety. But you know, the first job we got that really took us, you know, where we realized we were there, we were working, and we were going to generate revenue and be a success was way back in I think it was '84. And we got the contract. We competed for a contract, and we got the contract to do all the post-production for the Pope coming across Canada.
Wow.
And that was for CBC. And so we edited 10 90-minute shows, which really took up, you know, I had to hire more staff. It was a significant project, and it was a real learning experience as well.
Wow.
You know, along the way and on these projects, it's also working and finding mentors, or the mentors finding you, and sort of growing your business acumen, but also in my case too, growing my, you know, production acumen, because I started really as a camera person and then moved into being an editor, and we got into the editing company partially because there was a need in the market, but also because I like toys. And so that's where we had to raise money, and we had to get shareholders and such. So that was one of the sort of big projects that kicked things off for us. And we did a lot of training work for the military through the government over the years. Had me over at a month at a time in Germany and out in Wainwright, beautiful Wainwright, Alberta. But we did probably some 300 plus training videos or films for the D&D. And we also did, I worked back then because we were always working for producers and providing services. Back then we worked for Crawley Films a lot. So I really got to understand and meet and know all the team at Crawley's, which was one of the staples in the production business here in Ottawa, right from the very beginning, and in Canada, in fact. And then, you know, a large number of projects, I would say. I had an opportunity through Algonquin College to go to Thailand for a month and train radio producers who were moving into television production. And so there's a large, you know, and I'd say lately, you know, some of the things we've done recently, we continue to work with a great client, Engineers Canada, doing award shows. We produce a lot of live events, and that's an experience that we've sort of developed. The other area or silo of our work has been in museums and exhibitions.
Okay.
So we did the first museum film that was on 3 HD screens for Grand Pré in the history of the deportment of the Acadians. And that was the first time we were part of the team that designed the theater, did the production, did the installations as well in the theater. And it was the first Canadian HD multi-screen theater production. And so it's still playing to this day, some 20 years later. But yeah, it gives you a little bit of an idea.
Sounds like a lot of world travel, a lot of learning along the way. Again, just another factor that businesses just have to, sometimes you have to learn as you go, right? And you sort of, that's very cool.
Yeah, I think, you know, the opportunity that I have found, the great opportunity that I've found in our business in terms of corporate communications and production is that we're always learning. We're, you know, you're always having to understand a bit, not completely, what your client's business is all about. And it's important to be able to sort of listen and understand and appreciate what they do, so that you can sort of bring it to the table when you're creating their content and telling their story.
Exactly. And so as you've gone through all these various learning experiences, Ken, there's probably been some challenges that have come along your way. Is there any challenge or challenges that come to mind, and how did you, and if so, how did you overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I think, you know, probably the biggest challenge we had as a company, and the interesting thing about our business is that for the most part, until recently, the company we always had shareholders. We always had a board of directors. We always had an active board. Okay. It wasn't always a one-person show. And so, one had to be responsible as a general manager first, and then as a vice president, and then as a president and CEO. You were always answering to a board. And I think that gave me great experience with respect to that I've been able to take into nonprofit boards and that kind of thing, both as a chairman and as a board member or in advisory committees. But I think one of the biggest challenges we had as a business was with respect to growth. We were doing extremely well at one point, and we were looking at growing, and it made sense to grow. And at the time, we put together a package, and we raised about $1 million plus.
Wow.
And we moved into a 15,000 square foot facility, and we had 30 staff. Things were going quite well. But the challenge was then the technology changed, and we had that sort of desktop video come up. And there were other challenges that we had because we had started a number of other businesses at the same time. And then we had challenges with our banks.
Yeah, interesting. Not a surprise.
And not a surprise. They didn't have the same vision we had.
Right, yes. Yeah.
As to how we were going to use their money and that kind of thing. And so basically at one point, to be quite frank, we just got all our banking said, no, we're done. And we had several banks going on with several companies. And they didn't really understand the nature of the business and the interactions between each businesses. So we just sort of, at one point, we had to move out of getting banking money to some private cash.
Okay.
And we were at the point where literally we could have declared bankruptcy.
Wow.
So that was, I think, the most challenging. And I guess the way we worked through it was we just sort of, changed the key thing, I think, as a company that's growing, and I've seen it with smaller companies, is really understanding your financials and also having a team or an accountant or that kind of thing that's with you that also understands and also explains as you go how the bookkeeping works. I've run into small businesses that had no idea what an accrual was. They made a sale.
Sure.
They celebrated their sale of a couple $100,000, and they didn't realize that it was going to take them 4 or 5 months to do that, and they weren't $400,000 or $500,000 profitable in that particular month. So, the way we fought through it, and it took I would say, honestly, it took some good 7 years to get through that challenge or that 1 year problem, was just,
incredible.
Bearing down and solving it, looking at it, getting the right team in, and working hard at it.
Yeah. And Ken, you're not alone when you talk about banks. There's something about, and maybe it's the Canadian banking system, that unfortunately they're an oligopoly. They really don't understand businesses, and so it's incredible how to be a Canadian business, it is a struggle. And you're absolutely right. You don't want to have to rely on Canadian banks for your financing. So that's incredible. It's incredible.
Well,
story.
If you think, what's interesting is that, and every probably business person can relate this, when you don't need money, the banks are knocking on your door.
Exactly.
The fact is that our banks, especially with small business, and especially these days, in the last 10, 15 years, as banks have, I used to deal with a bank manager. I had a relationship with that manager. They took the time to understand our business when we were first starting. In the first 10 years, we had great relationships. But as soon as banks start taking away, particularly with small business, because you're not that large a size of loan, only 100,000 or a couple 100,000, they aren't there. You don't have anyone to speak to.
Or sometimes that relationship manager moves. He's promoted to another position, or she's promoted to another position.
Yes.
And that relationship is now gone, and you're now having to explain everything again to somebody else.
We got out of the banking system. We had to. We had to repay a significant amount of debt at the time, some $300K plus, in a short period of time. And the only way that we did it was through factoring back then.
Interesting.
And factoring was very interesting because we had a solid reputation, and we kept building on that reputation. But that interest cost was still at about 32% interest rate. And but the fact is that when we had developed that solid relationship, if I had a new contract, I could send that contract that day into the factoring company,
Get paid right
and
away.
get 90% of that money in my account the next day.
Yeah.
And that kept us going until we slowly weaned our way off of that.
Yeah. And for a lot of viewers that don't know what factoring is, as Ken was just mentioning, it's the ability to sell your receivables for a discounted price. It could be 80, 90, whatever percent you're able to negotiate to a factoring company and get paid immediately rather than having to wait 40, 45, 90, or whatever, 120 days.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, typically it would cost you, if you got the money paid back, it would cost you 3% of what they would take a 10% off of it, and then at the end of the day, cost would be 3% if you got that money back in 30 days.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's amazing, Ken. It's I'm so glad that you've shared some of this knowledge with us. If one of our viewers, or let's say I wanted to engage your services, how would I go about doing that? If I wanted to say, Ken, I need your help with corporate communications, with media communications, how would we do that?
Well, I mean, send me an email.
Which, by the way, will be in the description.
I mean, it's as simple as that. We're at this stage of our life, we've been in business 40 plus years. So, we are we take on projects that are of interest to us, really, especially on the corporate communication side. We've wound down that business a fair bit. We are still doing projects for different clients that we've been working with over the years, that we have a relationship and understanding with. We're always interested, certainly, in a new project or that kind of thing. Getting an email to me and just sort of communicating, basically what's the goal.
Okay.
And budget parameters, I wouldn't. To do a video just because you think you need a video is not what you want. You need to know what's the call to action at the end of the day. Not just what do you want to say, but what do you want the reaction to the video? What's the call to action? What's it meant to do? What's it meant to achieve? And then I think you need to have the budget parameters, because I think any production company or who's going to quote, or even individual, they need to know your what sort of area your budget's in. That's critical, because you literally can spend $2,000 to $200,000. And to think, the big problem some people come up with is they think that a longer video is going to cost more than a shorter video. It's actually the opposite. So the typical 30-second commercial is a lot more expensive than a 30-minute training video. So there's so many ways to go, and so many ways to sort of.
Well, and we've made sure that our viewers know they could contact us, contact you, and of course the information's in the description below. Ken, this podcast studio wouldn't have been possible without your insights, without your help, and we're very appreciative of that. And we're also really happy that you and Hoda are members of WorkAway offices. What led to your decision to come to WorkAway offices?
Well, the first thing was, if you recall, back in 2017,
I do.
We had a large project that we undertook for an American producer out of Hawaii. And it's what we call in the film and television business a service job, where I was asked to provide all the Canadian production services, including facilitating tax credits and such. And that was for what we call, it was for the part of the city of Ottawa, the 2017 Dragon Horse.
Oh, I remember it very well.
So,
it was all over the media. It was with the big spider.
Yeah, the big spider and dragon,
very, very
and
cool.
it was a phenomenal event, in my opinion. And we were just so lucky to be able to sort of take over that event from producing a documentary, feature film documentary on it. And we had, I think, about at one point 50 people, crew. We had 7 cameras placed. We had filming for 3 weeks because as they built them out at the Museum of Aviation, that's where they built both the Spider and put them together. So it was really an incredible project. But what we needed to do, of course, is we needed office space because we had a lot of people. There's a lot of coordination. We had a lot of people coming in from overseas that we had to arrange visas for. We had logistics to coordinate. So that's when I got introduced to WorkAway for the first time, and we on Lady Ellen Place.
I
we
remember that.
set up there, and it was just so easy for us to walk in one day and start working the next. And so when we were looking, you know, as I mentioned, we're sort of a mature company. We're taking on projects. We're more growing in the broadcast entertainment area in terms of children's programming and documentaries and different series and that kind of thing that can be seen around the world. And we're in some 37 countries. But we just felt, well, we don't need the large space that we had. And we checked out a lot of collaborative office spaces, but we came back here to WorkAway because we found that the environment, the location, and just the services that are here allowed me, as the boss, not to have to go and change the toilet paper in the washrooms, you know, that kind of thing. But no, it's just the services here have been great. The team and staff have been great. And it's the environment. So we have an office that we have sort of permanent here, but we also can take on more space if we need to. So it's just been great.
Excellent. No, thank you for that, Ken. Ken, this has been absolutely amazing. I appreciate the time and the insights that you've shared with us today. And so thank you very much. And also thank you for everyone for listening. Folks, if you do want to get in touch with Ken, we've put all of his contact information in the details and description below, so feel free to check that out or contact us directly and we'd be happy to put you in touch. Before you leave, if you like this video, please feel free to give us a thumbs up and please subscribe for future videos coming forward. Thank you very much.